Every board is a board you should try to surf waves on. There we go. Bomber.
Something that I'm really impressed with Isle is that they're constantly pushing the innovations, like welded rails, infinity fiber, or things that are just really useful on a day-to-day. I'm really excited to see each year Isle putting out these new products, really pushing the innovation. All I could say, really impressed with this.
They call them inflatable hardboards. Even though they're inflatable, they have the rigidity of a hardboard. A lot of other paddleboards aren't able to do that.
So here we've got the Isle Switch Pro Kayak SUP Hybrid. So it could be a kayak, could be a SUP, whatever you want. You could also add a second seat to this and make it a tandem kayak. There is enough room. The board is 11 foot 6 inches long. Typical single person stand-up paddle boards are about 9 foot 6 to 10 foot 6. This is 11 foot 6, so there is more room on it. And on top of that, this has a weight capacity of 475 pounds. 35.5 inches. Typical single person stand-up paddle boards are about 33 inches. And finally, the depth, 6 inches from top to bottom, which that's pretty standard in SUPs in general.
I must say, I would most certainly consider getting radical on some lonely, misbegotten beach with this babe.
Just got done inflating the Isle Switch Pro. It was a little bit harder than I would say normal paddle boards that I've used before for a couple reasons. First off, I don't know if you can see, have it inflated to 15 psi. So on this one, it says recommendations are between 13 and 17 psi. Typical paddle boards, recommendation is minimum of 10 and maximum of 15 pounds per square inch. So that in and of itself is going to be a little bit more difficult, especially towards the end when it gets up to pressure. Other than that, it was fairly normal to pump up. One of the reasons why Isle has these paddle boards, recommendation 13 to 17 psi, is because they're really big into the rigidity, and that's something that they really focus on of their inflatables. They call them inflatable hardboards because even though they're inflatable, they have the rigidity of a hardboard, which a lot of other paddle boards, unless you're talking about real high-end iSUPs, aren't able to do that. Here's why. These rails are all welded. So instead of using glue to put all the seams together of the rails, what they do is they actually weld the material to the material, so melted together to form one material instead of having like a seam that's just two separate pieces. The material is basically bonded into one, so it can handle a lot more pressure, which means you could put more air into it. And the second thing is something they call infinity fiber, which are these strands that they put on the material inside the paddleboard, and they provide more rigidity, but they're flexible enough to roll up. It's kind of like snap bracelet technology. So when it's straight, it's really rigid, but you know, when it's not, it can flex and roll up pretty easily. Here you can see the infinity fibers running down the length of the board on both sides, provide that extra rigidity that inflatable SUPs just aren't really known for. I'm gonna inflate the seat and put the kayak paddle together, and then we're gonna take it out in the water. let me give you a little bit of a close-up tour. Starting at the tip, we've got grab handle. Nose, even though they call it a rounded shape, it is a lot more pointy than a typical stand-up paddleboard. Got the bungees. This is the foot rack for the kayak. It just has a little G-hook on each side, and it hooks into the patent-pending aisle link system. So this goes all the way down the length of the board. You're able to hook up pretty much anything you want, anywhere you want on the board. It gives you a ton of versatility. We've got paddle holders here. There's a kayak seat, inflatable bottom, soft top. It just velcros on right here. And then same G-hook, aisle link. Got a bungee in the back. This right here is a motor mount system for the Bixby 3 horsepower outboard motor, which I will show you a little later. Inflation valve, and then you got 2 more carry drag handles. The leash just hooked up to one of the aisle links. And before I forget, 2 more things to show you. First, the full track deck pad. So if you have a dog, if you have kids, if you do SUP yoga, your worries are over. You can use the whole board. And then finally, there is this 1/4 screw accessory mount. You can hook up GoPro, regular camera, other action cameras, waterproof speaker, fishing pole holders, drink holders, whatever that you can fit on a 1/4 screw mount, you can bring on the board. I love these little cool innovations. Something that I'm really impressed with Isle is that they're constantly pushing the innovation, whether it's the welded rails or the Infinity fiber or the things that are just really useful on a day-to-day thing, like paddle holders, the aisle link system to be able to put it anywhere, not just 3 or 4 different D-ring placements, the mounts. Like, that's just such a cool thing, and I'm really excited to see each year Isle putting out these new products, really pushing the innovation. All I could say, really impressed with this. And speaking of innovations, I'm going to show you the fin. So a little longer than a normal fin. What we got here though is how this fin goes in. There's a little knob at the front, slides right in. There's this green kind of plastic rubbery thing in the back. Pushes in, slide it back, and now it's locked in place. No worrying about screws, losing screws, getting replacements, getting sand or salt stuck in there so you can't get the fin in. Simple. Innovative, awesome. The double-bladed kayak paddle. It's a 3-piece integration. There's this middle piece, and then 1 blade, and then for the kayak, 2nd blade. Or if you're using it as a SUP, you just put the T-handle in like normal. Find the hole, plug it in. Super fast to be able to interchange between kayak, stand-up paddleboard, completely adjustable, pretty standard pump. It can be taken apart, which is pretty cool. So you can fit it in a smaller space. Has a nice little reading on there to show you when you're good. Has an inflate side, has a deflate side, and then has a double action. So when you put this in here and you screw that in, when you pull out and when you push down, it's forcing air into the kayak. It goes a lot quicker, but it's a lot harder because you have resistance in both directions. Usually I start there and then I take that out towards the end when it gets harder to pump anyway. And now really easy to pull out, and then air goes in just as you push down on the handle. All right, let me show you this bag. It looks a lot like a typical stand-up paddleboard bag. Backpack on one side. These are some pretty heavy-duty straps. A little bit of padding, which is kind of nice. Chest strap
hip strap, waist strap, all the regular stuff that you'd see. Padding is minimal, but it does the job. I love that they have a little clamshell pocket up on the side on the back. Put your fin, put your leash, those types of items. Also for me, if I'm only bringing one bag, I can put my GoPro and things like that in here, any filming equipment, which is super cool. On the other side, they have wheels. What I really like about this design is the wheels are on the opposite side of the carry straps. I've tried some other stand-up paddleboard bags that have wheels, but the wheels are on the same side, and as you're walking, the wheel will like pinch your butt, which is just like not that cool. I don't love that design. I love the fact that I'll decide to put the wheels on the opposite side. Also pretty heavy duty bag, and it's not the biggest, which pros and cons. The con of it not being the biggest bag is it's less forgiving in you actually rolling up the paddleboard and fitting everything inside. Pro is it's way less unwieldy when you're actually wearing this backpack as opposed to ginormous backpacks like some of the other SUP companies are making that are really generous. You can fit a lot. You don't have to roll it super tight. But when it's on your back, it's kind of wide. It's almost like you're carrying a bouldering pad around. And it fits nicer when you're storing it. And one more thing to note about this paddleboard when you're rolling it up and trying to put it away, it is a little bit more difficult to get a tight roll on it than it is a paddleboard that doesn't have this infinity fiber. So even though it's a nice flexible material, you just have to be on it a little bit more because it's going to want to kind of unroll. Now back to the action on the beach.
We've got it in the kayak configuration right now. Kayak seat, footrest, and yeah, we'll see how it does. Here we are. It is actually a super windy day out on the west side of Oahu. Also pretty decent swell. I'm extremely bummed I didn't bring a surfboard, but we're gonna maybe try and catch some waves on this thing when we go in stand-up paddle mode. Super offshore wind, so this is me not paddling, just getting carried out to sea right now. So I'm gonna turn around, paddle back in a little bit. All right, first impressions, pretty cool. I mean, it is really easy to paddle. It's like being on a stand-up paddleboard, but sitting and having a double-bladed paddle like a kayak. Conditions are kind of crazy, so I'm fighting against that a little bit. One thing with sit-atop things like this, kayaks, stand-up paddleboards, inflatables in general, they're a lot lighter and they don't sit in the water, they sit on top of the water. So the wind affects them pretty heavily. So you get blown around quite a bit, but despite that, I feel really confident being able to paddle back in. And I know that's not always the case on some paddle boards. So this tracks pretty well and it cuts the water pretty well so far. All right, so back on land. That was really fun. All right, SUP next. pretty nice. Yeah, moves really well. I do love the shape. I feel like it cuts through the water better. It's cool, super stable. I mean, you can wobble back and forth on this thing. I've gone over a bunch of wake and waves that are coming in. It's supposed to be flat, but apparently there's a little surf, so that's pretty cool. I think I might take this over to the other side and see if I can catch a couple waves. Some other things I really like, the full track deck. So there is tip to tail grip pad, so you can walk up and down, lay down, and there's just grip all over this thing. A couple other features. You do have this handy dandy camera mount, which I thought I brought the right one, but I did not bring the right adapter for my GoPro, so we should have to come back tomorrow and do it again. Another thing I really like is they have right over here these paddle holders, so I can put my paddle right in there, strap it on, and I could do stupid stuff like this. Don't have to worry about losing the paddle. All right, let's paddle over there to the surf spot and see if we can catch a wave. Oh yeah, here we are. Let's see if we can get one. That's a little nose forward on that one. Let's try again. There we go. Bomber. Woo. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. Let's get another one. Well, that was a ton of fun. So, a couple thoughts on this. First off, they do not market this as a SUP surfboard. So they're not saying that this is the board you should use to surf waves. However, in my opinion, every board is a board you should try to surf waves on. With that said, some cool innovations that they do have is this leash that looks kind of like a loosely coiled kind of floppy string. It basically stretches like 2 or 3 times its length to really absorb the shock when you get ripped away from your board and the wave takes your board. Not putting any undue strain on any of the leash points or attachment points, and has a better chance of your leash not breaking in a situation like that. But having got on this thing and caught a couple waves, it was pretty fun. Super hard to steer. With it being, you know, as big as it is and not meant for that. But I think with the aggressive shape that it does have and a couple more tries, I think I'll be able to maybe rip up and down one of these things.